Things got scary when private investigators started following them and when they started getting intimidated and threatened. Still, nothing changed, regardless of everything. As a first step, we contacted a writer since we felt helpless. When you bring things to light, they improve. Sure enough, that's exactly what we did. I had been through a lot, but the Lord instilled in me a strong conviction to remain in the position He had appointed me for. It is fascinating how seemingly insignificant things, like an Instagram post, can spark the most significant narratives. This very thing occurred earlier this year when Suzy Lamb, who is Jonathan Lamb's wife, posted an emotionally moving Instagram photo. No one could have predicted back then that her words would unravel one of the most influential Christian media families and create such a storm. Putting those words online by Suzy wasn't a major deal. Lots of flashy signs didn't make it a big deal. It hit close to home. It was solemn and sad. However, it was sincere and rooted in suffering. Unbeknownst to Suzy, she was facilitating a discussion that many drew back from, a discussion of truth, family, religion, and tragically, betrayal. It should come as no surprise that the Lamb family is unique. They are in charge of Daystar television network, one of the biggest Christian television networks globally. Their TV teaching, worship, and gospel sharing has been seen by people all over the globe for a long time. Their unity and faith were an inspiration to many, but as we have seen, not everything was peachy. She was a Christian, a wife, and a mother, and what little she did say revealed a profound anguish that had shaken her. Something heavy had been on her back. And initially, nobody understood it. Did you feel down? Is it related to you personally, or did someone request assistance? The story came to a close with the revelation that Suzy and Jonathan were facing a horrific accusation. They claimed a relative had harmed their little daughter, a case of alleged abuse involving a prominent Christian family in the nation. Yes, that is correct. There was a great deal of distress and suffering, and that has not gone away. Consider the strain it must have been on them. Put yourself in Jonathan's, the son of Daystar, founder, Marcus Lamb, Suzy's, the wife of Jonathan's, shoes. Jonathan was tasked with running the network in the future. Despite her best efforts, she remained silent about the atrocity she witnessed, terrified that those who ought to have stood by her would instead betray her and her family. That is the story's most painful aspect. According to Suzy and Jonathan, their loved ones reacted with hostility and silence rather than compassion and support. As they continued to speak out in hopes of obtaining justice, they felt increasingly isolated. Additionally, that Instagram post served as an early indicator that they would be speaking out. Consider how courageous you are. When you're up against powerful voices and your words could destroy your relationships, career, and reputation, posting anything online becomes a huge deal, even though some may not think it is. On Instagram, she wrote, "It all started this time last year when I said I would no longer be used or silenced under the word submission. Instead, I would speak the truth as the Holy Spirit leads me to bring everything to light by blowing up all the dark tunnels of how the layers worked for so long." The eyes that looked at me displayed rage. I was about to confront the greatest battle of my life, and although it was terrifying, I had faith that God was with me. To keep me in check, some revered ministers were dispatched. In order to preserve my position and the plans God had for me, they urged me to capitulate, but I felt the Holy Spirit's voice tell me, "Don't bow." So I could stand before God and know that He would be proud of His daughter no matter what, said the woman. I tallied up the price. My life, my journey of obeying rules, my family, my wife and children, and my story are all laid at the foot of the cross. No matter the cost, I would stand alone if it meant obeying God. God blessed me with a husband who is stronger than I am, and that became crystal clear to me. I begged God to save me as I shook and sobbed on the floor, and Jonathan Lamb stood by. God did, but it was different from my expectations. The genuine, godly people who spoke life over me and helped me get back up after falling will soon be discussed. I would not be here today if it weren't for them. According to my coach, I am not a victim, but rather an advocate. Rather than remaining silent, those who speak out make their voices heard. God makes the intelligent look foolish when they do foolish things, as my life demonstrates. I had no idea such things occurred in religious institutions. They misunderstood my true identity and attempted to mold me into a party girl because they thought it would be easy. People are important to God. He gave his life for his offspring, not for labor. Through well-run organizations, he does a lot of good for people. It requires immense courage to speak about one's suffering, particularly when it pertains to events that occurred long ago. It is difficult to reopen old wounds when the individuals who wronged you were those you trusted the most. That is the heartbreaking and moving thing about Suzy Lamb's story. Earlier this year, Suzy posted something to Instagram. Despite appearances, this wasn't simply an opportunity to vent. It pertained to something far more profound. The reason being that it was born out of pain, from a broken but salvageable heart. Her forthrightness betrayed her readiness to tell the truth, no matter the cost. Her post was ultimately removed so it didn't remain online for long. However, the impact was already noticeable. According to John 8:32, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Suzy longed for freedom. She had finally had enough of putting on a show for the sake of others who wouldn't defend her. What she and her husband Jonathan Lamb have been through is shocking and painful, and now they are telling everyone about it. Neither of these people is an enemy nor an outsider. They are Jonathan's parents, Marcus and Joni Lamb, and they started Daystar television network. They had faith that the person they loved and trusted would make the correct choice under pressure. Part 2 of Suzy's story is about to be read, and it is even more terrifying than part 1. Marcus and Joni lied to Suzy about her assault, she says, long before they lied about their daughter. There was no miscommunication. According to Suzy, she was the victim of a sexual assault in January 2017. The attack took place in Daystar's green room, a hidden area where employees and guests often congregate. The individuals who caused her harm were not faceless bystanders. He was a doctor with a questionable history. He was hired by the people he made. The trouble is that these disturbing allegations involving a child had previously led to the revocation of this man's medical license. Despite this, Marcus and Joni decided to give him another opportunity. After he found God, they told him he had changed for the better. People could be saved, they believed. Truthfully, I think that's a good thing. Chances for redemption are universally embraced. God is kind and merciful. If you value the safety of your loved ones, it is your moral obligation to not disregard red flags. The Lamb family was longtime acquaintances with this individual. He gained access to their personal spaces and spoke with loved ones, including Suzy. Initial impressions were favorable. Next came the day when a turning point occurred. An unsettling feeling washed over Suzy on this particular day, she claims. The chiropractor appeared inebriated and was behaving in an unusual manner. When the assistant stepped out of the room for a moment, something happened. According to Suzy, he gave her a hard hit. It was disturbing. On top of being wrong, she felt startled, wounded, and afraid. Initially, she shared it with everyone. Jonathan, her husband, was the only one she could trust. I agree with that. He concurred with her. Running to his parents, Marcus and Joni, for protection, they sought assistance immediately. The following events, however, exacerbate the situation. Instead of standing by her side and seeing that she received justice, rumor has it that Marcus and Joni did the unthinkable and paid off the man. The authorities were not alerted. They refrained from suing. Not even themselves were informed of what had transpired. To preserve Daystar's reputation, people like Suzy and Jonathan allegedly told her to remain silent. What they really meant was, don't bring it up, even though they claimed to handle it. No one should know, stay out of trouble. The ministry should not be tarnished. But the reality is that genuine ministries do not stand up for predators. Legitimate Christians do not avoid addressing victims. Covering up abuse does not honor God. A lot of bad things are hidden by it. What is done in secret will be exposed in the end, according to Luke 8:17. Exactly that is happening at this very moment. Having kept it a secret for years, they are now disclosing it to the world. Not for the sake of attention, but for the sake of justice. Simply put, nobody should go through life without help. Nobody should ever have to worry that their suffering might bring shame on another person. The thought of everything they've gone through saddens me. The individuals who ought to have shielded Suzy from harm chose to do so in order to safeguard their reputation, which deeply disturbed Suzy. They repeated the process when her daughter was going through her own suffering, which was many years later. That goes beyond being a passing fad. The system prioritizes the network over the people and is based on silence. You can't do that. There are a lot of people on Daystar. It reaches many individuals across the globe. Many tune in search of inspiration, a way to hear God's word, and a sense of belonging to a greater whole. What happens, though, when the site's administrators act contrary to the principles they preach? This story has Christians very upset. Consideration of trustworthiness must be given serious consideration. To be responsible, what does one mean? Also, instead of ignoring the helpless, how can we lend them a hand? Much is lost for Suzy and Jonathan whenever they speak out. People's hearts have broken for them. The ministry no longer requires their services. Critics and judges have passed judgment on them. Freedom, however, has been won for them. The truth, in all its messy glory, is being fought for by their words. Standing with the hurt, speaking up for the powerless, and bringing light into the darkness are all parts of our Christian calling. Indeed, that is their intended goal. Envision yourself as a member of a well-known Christian family that appears on television and oversees a global church that serves millions of people. Imagine for a second a world where the camera's smiles and firm instruction are hiding a dark and painful secret. You and your child are both harmed by this secret. When you try to speak up, the people who matter the most to you tell you to be quiet. It's the truth that Jonathan and Suzy Lamb claim to have known for a long time. Their story goes beyond a simple family drama to explore the pervasive culture of betrayal, control, and silence at Daystar, a leading Christian television network globally. Daystar was more than a job or a mission, according to Suzy and Jonathan. Hiding painful facts was valued more than seeking justice or healing, and the locals there believed it was normal to do so. It wasn't triggered by a single incident either. The strong emphasis on secrecy, according to Suzy, had an effect on their young daughter. In 2020, something awful occurred. Their little girl, who was just 5 years old, broke the news that no parent wants to hear. She was a victim of sexual assault. My mind was blown. It was terrifying. Suzy sought assistance from her mother-in-law, Jonilamb, as any selfless mother would. One would assume that Joni, as a powerful figure in a Christian ministry, would contact the authorities and seek professional help to safeguard her granddaughter. But according to Suzy, that's completely incorrect. Instead of calling the police, she claims Joni advised her not to. She warned her against speaking. Joni encountered the young girl independently. Following that lunch conversation, something shifted. The daughter stopped mentioning the abuse altogether, as if someone had instructed her to disregard it or made her feel like she couldn't bring herself to discuss it any longer. Suzy suffered greatly because of that. She struggled to cope with the emotional toll of her child's suffering on top of the burden of being isolated once more. Therefore, Suzy had experienced something similar before. She claims that long ago, a trusted family member sexually assaulted her in the Daystar building. She claims her in-laws advised her to remain silent and give them another chance to deal with the situation. It seemed like it had happened before, but this time her daughter was involved. After years of professional treatment and Christian friends, Suzy finally began to comprehend what she had been through. Healing wasn't a picnic. It was tough, and I prayed and sobbed many night prayers. Through it all, Suzy maintained her fidelity to her faith. She had faith that God could bring light out of the darkest corners. We should not participate in the futile activities of the evil one, but rather expose them for what they really are, as stated in Ephesians 5:1. In 2021, things changed once more. Daystar co-founder and Jonathan's dad, Mark Lamb, passed away. The family's power structure underwent significant changes after his passing. According to Suzy, Johnny's influence over her intensified. Work had transformed into an emotional roller coaster. Almost every aspect of Suzy's life was controlled by Joni, including her social life. According to Suzy, Joni was preparing her to take over the throne of the Lamb family. It might have appeared like they were mentoring each other during their lengthy phone conversations about family and work. In hindsight, Suzy realized that the focus was more on mastering the art of controlling people than leading them. She compares her family relationships to a game of chess, which Joni taught her. Maintain order, maintain power, and avoid legal trouble. Now, Suzy sees things differently. She used to believe she was becoming smarter. No matter what she believes, it was all done to conceal the family's secrets. Things reached a peak when Suzy and Jonathan started to doubt Joni's choices, particularly her association with a divorced sex therapist, which caused them concern. Someone raised their voice. Her authority was challenged. That was the turning point. On July 20, 2023, Joni did the courageous thing. She let Suzy go from Daystar. In addition to losing their job, they were personally betrayed. Daystar was fortunate to have Suzy on board, who contributed much of her time, enthusiasm, and soul to the cause in her roles as both an employee and a family member. Firing someone was both a strategic decision for the company and a firm boundary to establish. The pain was worth it because it signaled the start of something better. The silence was becoming too much for Jonathan and Suzy to bear. They wanted to know the truth, not because they were angry, so they told everyone what had happened. They discussed the long-term tactics of silence, including deceit, psychological abuse, and spiritual manipulation. Listening to their tale is challenging. Hey, it's legit. Feelings are evoked. It also contradicts the general perception of Daystar. It's powerful because it depicts the consequences of prioritizing healing over convenience and honesty over security. To Suzy, it's about more than just surviving. Those who've been silenced are heard by her. Support from friends and family, including Kenyon, Kay Coleman, and his wife, as well as her religious beliefs, are giving her the fortitude to persevere. She advocates for people to be open about their struggles rather than bury them. The strong may hide behind lies, but the weak are saved by telling the truth. Despite its disturbing nature, this story teaches us that no one is immune to responsibility, regardless of their level of fame or respect. When we come out of hiding, we can begin the healing process. Please know that you are not alone if you or a loved one has experienced this. You have a significant say. We value your story. Optimism is also present. Why? Because according to Psalm 34:18, the Lord is near to those who are crushed in spirit and saves them. Forgiveness isn't always an emotion. It's not easy to let go of people who have harmed, exploited, or abused you to such an extreme degree. That's why it's important to seek God's forgiveness. Remember, forgiving someone is more for you than for them. After all, they don't care most of the time. That's why they were mean to you. So don't worry about it. What matters is that your heart be at peace with the Lord. One way to achieve this is to start praying every day. It's a wonderful start. By the way, Jen, I love that you're praying for Corey. If you've been following the news, you're aware that Suzy Lamb and her husband Jonathan have made some very serious and painful accusations regarding what happened to Suzy in 2017 and then to their young daughter in 2020. This story has shocked many, especially Christians, because it involves some of the biggest names in Christian television. Daystar has now responded to some of those claims, including the one that said a chiropractor hired by the network sexually assaulted Suzy. They said Jonilamb knows about an incident with a chiropractor that Suzy brought up in 2017. Suzy had repeatedly asked the doctor in question to treat her, both at Daystar and at her home. As Marcus had requested, an observer was always present at Daystar when Suzy was receiving care. In 2017, Suzy Lamb informed Marcus and Joni that the doctor had touched her in an unnatural way. The word rape was never used, and Suzy didn't say anything that would classify it as such. The person who was present during the alleged incident denied any wrongdoing. Despite this, Marcus allowed the doctor to leave immediately. This response is currently very formal and meticulously written, which makes sense considering the significance of the subject. For the benefit of young viewers who may be asking, how could this happen in a Christian family? It is important to note that no one bribed the doctor, and neither Marcus nor Joni would have advised Suzy not to call the police. First, keep in mind that even the most famous priests and TV hosts are fallible human beings. Therefore, it is important to explain this in terms that everyone can grasp. Secondly, consider what this means for trustworthy church leaders. It's commendable that Daystar addressed the allegations, but it's fair to have reservations, particularly when the narratives don't imply rudeness. Politeness does not imply rudeness. Doing so entails seeking the truth. Suzy had previously worked with the doctor, according to Daystar's statement, and she denied using the word rape when she described what happened. They also claimed that a witness who was present during the meetings failed to notice anything amiss. Regardless, following Suzy's revelation, Marcus Lamb appears to have released the doctor. In addition, they state that the chiropractor did not receive payment and that no one attempted to dissuade Suzy from contacting the police. That may give the impression that the case is closed to some. However, for some, particularly those who have experienced or know someone who has tragic circumstances, it can be quite challenging. Dealing with stress can be quite challenging. In order to describe what transpired, people do not necessarily use legal terms, such as rape or attack. It may have been frightening, perplexing, or simply difficult to comprehend what they are going through. That in no way disproves its having occurred. What matters is that they are doing their utmost to address the situation. Living in a strong, tight-knit family like the Lambs, where parents are also bosses, can make speaking out even more of a challenge. Maybe you're worried that if you cause a scene, someone will take away your career, your relationships, or even your position in the family. Thus, it is crucial to provide a safe space where individuals can tell their stories without fear of reprisal. As the Bible says in Proverbs 31:8, speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. This means that we should be willing to lend a hand and listen to those who are suffering, particularly if they are courageous enough to admit it. And if nothing terrible occurred, why are there still so many emotional scars? Does anyone know why Suzy felt so isolated? Is there a reason she and Jonathan felt compelled to abandon a network and a mission that were meant to spread the love of God? It is necessary to ask these difficult questions. Who is telling the truth isn't the only issue at stake here. The story also touches on the type of community we're building within Christian households and the church. Do we want to create a culture where people are open and honest? On the other hand, are we fostering an environment where individuals are comfortable with avoiding difficult conversations and keeping secrets? Suzy and Jonathan Lamb's story teaches us to be wary, even in houses of worship. Those who are weak, not only leaders or groups, but individuals as a whole. When someone says, "I've been hurt," we should listen carefully, regardless of how it makes us feel. Indeed, Daystar did respond. That being said, it is not the end of our conversation. In a lot of ways, it's only just beginning. This is due to the fact that many are starting to question the church's stance on sensitive topics such as abuse, power, and responsibility, in addition to Suzy and Jonathan. We are now waiting for your response. Do you have any opinions? Can you say with confidence that Marcus and Joni acted appropriately? When Jonathan and Suzy departed from Daystar, were they making the correct decision? Is this going to alter people's perceptions of Christian television and its executives? Perhaps the most pressing concern is the future of Daystar in light of the fact that the Lamb family is no longer united. Use the space below to share your opinions. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. You have a significant say. To ensure you don't miss any more developments in the story, click the subscribe button and like, share, and comment on this video if it touched you. Let us constantly keep in mind to pray for those in our lives. Recuperation is attainable. The right thing can be done. The first steps, though, are to speak the truth and to stand firm. God bless you for tuning in. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. Catch you later.